Missing someone love with all your heart. Missing someone love with heart.
What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. In this week's episode I'm going to do a combination of some balayage and some low lighting. So my client here, her color history is she has like an old balayage, and then you can see a couple inches off the root is her natural regrowth. She is naturally a level 7 and she has a very subtle light balayage on the ends. Our goal today is to do a dimensional Bronde tone, so she wants to essentially feel overall darker and more brown and have a really rich type of brown, and then have some subtle pops of like an ashy lighter brown to give it some dimension and highlights against the low lights that we're going to be putting in. So for my lowlights, I'm going to be using the Pole Bright Liquid Demis, and I'm using 5-8. The 8 is the brown series in the Liquid Demi line, and I'm using a level 5 because whenever I low light any of my clients, since we're going to be using a demi permanent, it is going to fade. So I do like to mix any type of low light at least a level darker than our target shade, because I know it's going to fade at least a level or so depending on how porous their hair is or how healthy their hair is. But generally I like to do at least like a level or two. It just depends. So after that I mixed up some lightener, and I'm just going to go in with my Schwarzkopf Blonde Me lightener, and I'm going to use just straight 20 all over because I feel like I'm going to go through her highlighting and foiling pretty quickly. So I started in the back in the nape here, and I'm just going in with my traditional sectioning to where I'm just going horizontally up the head, and I'm going and taking these sections back to back. My sectioning pattern I would say is going probably a 1/4 inch up off the head. She does have a bit of like finer hair texture, so that's why I felt like I could go a 1/4 inch up each side when I sectioned the hair. If her hair was a bit thicker, I would definitely take thinner sections, but you can see already that taking a 1/4 inch section with her hair texture worked perfectly fine. So as I'm weaving here, I am going back to back, so pretty much everything is in a foil other than the pieces that are left out of my weave. So I am alternating doing a low light and a highlight. So I started off with a low light, and then the next one is going to be my balayage pieces, which is the highlight. So this is going to create a very soft blend between the two colors. The reason why I am low lighting her hair is because she had showed me actually a picture of one of my old clients, and on that client I didn't low light her, but since this client, her natural color and the base of her brown is a little bit lighter than my other clients, I felt like I needed to low light her to create the same look so that she could see those pops against her highlights. So that's another thing that I like to go over during a consultation. If I see a picture a client brings me and it's very dimensional, like it has a lot of highs and lows, what I mean by that is there's a really dark tone and a really light tone against each other. Sometimes they're looking at that and looking at the dimension. So I like to ask them whether they want to see those dark and light pops in their color. And she did, so that is why I opted to do highlights and lowlights rather than just straight balayage on her. Because if I just did a straight balayage on her and didn't lowlight her at all, I felt like she wouldn't feel as rich of a brown and dark of a brown as she ends up with at the end of the hair appointment. So as I'm weaving her, I'm pretty much just doing like chunky weaves on the bottom, and then as I get towards the top, just making a more medium-sized weave. I don't really do baby lights unless I'm doing it around the hairline to create that softness. I'm doing pretty much the chunkiness all over because I really want to see those nice beautiful ribbons, and I'm not too worried about my weaves being too chunky because of course we're going to shadow root her and it's going to make everything blend so beautiful. So as I'm at the top here, I'm going to just continue this middle mohawk section all the way up to her hairline, and then I will hit the sides afterwards. Also, another really nice tip that really helped me during the rinse out process of doing a balayage and lowlights is when I do my balayage, I just lay my foil right on top of each other. I don't like to fold where the lightener is too much, but where the lowlight is, since I'm not too worried about like the lowlight processing uneven if I fold the foil, I do fold all of the lowlights up, and I fold it twice, so essentially the foil is a little bit shorter than my normal balayage pieces. This is gonna later help me as I rinse it out or go back and recheck my foils. It's really easy for me to distinguish what is a lowlight and what is a highlight. And again, my formulations, I'm using 5-8 from Pulp Bright Liquid Demi for my low light, and for my lightener, I'm just using the Blonde Me Schwarzkopf with some standard 20 volume. So for her money piece, she wanted it to be a bit lighter than the rest here, so I'm just going in and just doing a few slices back to back. I opted to do slices because I wanted it to be nice and bold, since we're doing pretty much back to back weaves all over throughout the back of the head. I wanted the front money piece to really stand out, so that's why I did about 3 slices, and then after that I will be alternating doing the highlight and low light sectioning again. Also, as I'm painting any of my highlights, I'm making sure that I'm not overlapping onto any previously blonde ends there. I do kind of just feather down as I meet any previous balayage pieces that she has on the ends. And then my sections as well, I'm also making sure that they're see-through enough to where that the lightener can fully saturate the hair and give a really nice even lift. So after I do those 3 slices, I do a low light after that, and then I continue the pattern. And my weaves, since they are around the face here, I do make them a bit smaller than I did on the bottom, whereas on the bottom I did more of a chunky weave. So since this is to top crown and it's going to overlay on top of everything and where she parts her hair, I do make sure that these weaves are more on the smaller to medium size. So as I'm here on the side, I am doing slices as well. So I do about 2 slices back to back, and then now I'm taking another slice, but this time I'm adding a little bit dimension in that 3rd slice and grabbing all the way back behind the ear and meeting those back foils so that everything around the hairline is fully covered. That way when she puts her hair up, she has color all throughout her hairline. So after I do those 3 slices, I continue my low light pattern. So I do a medium sized weave with a low light, and then again I'm taking another section right back after that with no negative space other than the weave that's left out, and putting in a highlight there. And then again I will be putting a low light after that, and then adding one last highlight for this last section on the sides here. So since this is the sides, I'm not too worried about highlighting this part too much. I'm more worried about leaving enough dimension, since this is going to be the underneath that is underneath the halo of where she parts her hair. So as I rinse out the foils, I carefully try to remove the lowlights first. This is so that I can rinse out the lowlights before I rinse out the highlights, to prevent any of the lowlights bleeding onto my freshly done highlights. So I don't want to darken my lowlights that I just did, so I like to rinse the lowlights first and then rinse out the highlights afterwards. So this kind of keeps it very clean and makes sure that my highlights don't rinse out dingy as like the lowlights kind of bleed out, because you can see here as I'm rinsing it out, some of the lowlight color, it does kind of rinse a darker brown, and since we did a level 5, if that kind of poured onto some of my freshly lightened highlights that I pretty much lightened to about a level 9 and 10, it probably would darken it a little bit and come out a little bit different from what our goal is. So once all of the highlights reached a level 9 and 10, I rinsed them all out, and then I began to root shadow her. I started to root shadow her in the back, taking vertical sections around the head and then working my way towards the hairline. I do the hairline last after I do full toner in the back. So for her root shade, I used whatever I low lighted with, which is the 5-8, and I did about an inch of that. And then afterwards, my lighter tone for the mids and ends, I use 8-2, which is a level 8 violet, and I applied it through the mid, brushed it out, and then applied it to the ends there. And then once I was done applying the toner fully on the back, that is when I went to the money piece hairline area and started to root shadow that, and then apply the 8-2 all over and let it process until it was to the tone that I wanted. Alrighty guys, so here is the finished look. She is so much darker and it's a really nice rich brown. I really love how the 8-2 gives a beautiful ash light brown tone against the lowlights that we did. I feel like if I didn't lowlight her, it wouldn't give the same effect at all because of her natural or what color she came in and started out with. So as this color fades out, I would expect her lowlights to probably fade into probably a level 6, maybe a level 7, depending on how healthy or porous her hair is. And then the highlights itself, that 8-2 is just going to lighten up into a really nice light blonde. Alrighty guys, that is it for this week's episode. As always, thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in, and I will talk to you guys next week.